Hi, I'm Howell from UnitedTaps.com, and today I want to talk about pullbacks. More specifically, what can I do if I can't get pullbacks, or if you're a teacher and your students just can't get the pullbacks.
By continuing to watch this video, you are agreeing to relieve United Taps and its staff of any liability for injuries or damages caused by watching or attempting any of the movements presented in this video. If you do not agree to this, please discontinue watching this video now. Thank you.
Now, before we jump in, first of all, I want to say everyone has their own approach to pullbacks, which is totally fine. I do want to differentiate between what I would call a pullback and a pickup. I'm going to do that real quick. For me, a pullback is when one sound happens as you leave the floor, similar to like a spank, except you're not lifting it up really high, you're coming from the floor. And the second sound happens as you land. So pullback for me is basically spanking the foot backwards or brushing back, but not from the air. I mean, technically the foot goes in the air this minuscule amount, but we're not lifting it up like a spank, essentially. So the foot makes the sound from the floor, and the second sound is landing. A pickup for me is making no sounds as you leave the floor and both as you land. I'll do a quick demonstration of each. These are pullbacks, making a sound as I leave the floor. Right? And then we have pickups where I make no sound as I leave the floor and two sounds as I come down. Now, pickups tend to be easier to move around because I'm going through the air. I'm going through the air on the jump, and I only make the sounds on the landing. So I can go any direction when I jump. With the pullbacks, yeah, we'll suffice it to say it's easier to do the pickups traveling. Anyway, so you can't do these, right? The pullbacks, they're not happening. All right, so I'm going to give you all the different strategies that I employ when I have a student who can't get these. And personally, when I first learned these, it took me 3 months of like nothing, and then one day I got it, and honestly, I have no idea what magically happened that one day. It was very exciting, but I had 3 solid months of I just couldn't do them, period, like nothing. Okay, so if you're in that boat, don't feel bad, we've all been there. The first and most successful strategy that I give my students is simply to travel more. Very often, they're starting here and they're going, like, I can't get my pullbacks. Well, yeah, you're traveling 3 inches. I tell them to travel very, as far as they possibly can, and then basically farther even than that. One quick note before you do this, do not lean forward. I have seen students hit their face on the floor because they leave their body here while their feet go back, and they just pop right against the floor. You don't want to do that. So you're going to keep your stomach over your feet, guaranteeing your balance, and your eyes straight ahead. That way you're not doing a face plant. But very often when I tell a student, okay, move more, they're like, okay, so now we went 8 to 10 inches. Not enough. You need to be going like 3 to 4 feet. All right, so however far they're traveling, travel more. The more they travel, the more likely they are to get them. Once they're getting them consistently, then we can say, okay, we can maybe not go quite as far, because in general, you're not going to be doing a 4-foot pullback. You're going to be doing a 1 foot. But if you can't get them at all, travel way more than you think you need to. Why does this work? I think making yourself travel that far makes you change the mechanics of what your legs do so that they're doing more of what they need to do for the pullback. And we'll get more into that in a minute. All right, so that's my number one thing. And this will solve like 80 to 85% of students who can't get it. This will solve the problem. Just travel way further than you think you need to. Okay, so that's number one. Number 2, sometimes they're doing this, even if they travel a lot. All right? You just got to get higher. If it's not coming off the floor, you got to come off the floor. Not a lot, but a little bit. So just higher, right? And then they'll do these. So it's like a partial, and then you're like higher. Okay, higher. And then eventually high enough, you'll ideally get just high enough where that the feet can tap and land. Okay? So if all you're doing is sliding, you got to go higher. Some kids go too far and they do this. All right, they lift them way too high, like way too high. Well, when I execute a good pullback, you'll notice my feet are very close to the floor. All right, they're like maybe 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch coming off the floor, but that's about it. So if you're coming up anywhere higher than that, even a couple inches, too high. You got to go lower. So you're finding that sweet spot, too low and it slides, too high and you just air jump. So you've got to find right in that middle zone. Okay, so that's the next thing, finding the right height. Not too low, not too high. After that, there are some other questions I will ask my students I will say, okay, what are your toes doing inside your shoes? I'm going to pretend my fingers are my toes. If you are squeezing them and locking them and holding them, not going to happen. If you're squeezing and locking, holding, you're going to get something like this, right? That scrapey, grindy thing, and you're not going to get the pullback. What I recommend you do with your toes is you have two options. Option number one is one quick touch and release, like doo-dah, doo-dah. And that touching, that temporary squeeze, and it's not like a level 10 squeeze. We're talking like a level 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, a pressure level of 5 squeeze is going to happen as you make that first sound, right? And then it's immediately released. And if you hold it too long, forget it, you're probably going to get that scrape sound. So that's one option. The other option is don't do anything. Don't squeeze them at all, just keep them completely relaxed. All right, so that's enough. Now, I would probably actually have you try to keep them completely relaxed first. Now, if that fails, you might try the really super brief squeeze. In super rare instances, if neither of those work and everything else mechanically looks good, I may try, and it's going to sound crazy, I may actually tell them lift your toes towards the top of the shoe. All right, and that's kind of weird. I can still make the sound, but that's like a last ditch effort. However, everybody's different. Sometimes you have that 1%er who their body doesn't work the same, or the way their mind connects with their feet isn't the same for everyone else. So all these strategies you have, they're not cutting it. So you're like, okay, let's try. I'm very pragmatic. It's like whatever works. If it works and you don't look weird, we're good. So that's my very last ditch effort. If nothing else is working and all the other mechanics are good, they're traveling far, the height looks good, and everything else, we might try lifting the toes up. But that's like a very, very small percentage. Generally, make sure the toes are doing nothing, or they can do one brief squeeze and release. Last ditch effort, you can possibly lift them up. So that's that. Okay, and so then there are a few other things. This tightness and looseness of the ankles. Very often tap dancers will have their ankles will just be too tight. And so it doesn't matter what they're doing with their toes. It doesn't matter what they're doing with anything else, because their ankles are in their whole lower leg is so tight that they can't get what needs to be what I would call a whipping action. If you think of a whip, you hold it at one end, it's relatively loose, and then you snap it, and the jerk at the top of the whip filters through the loose whip and pops at the end. It was very similar to here. I'm gonna be very specific, after you push off. What can be confusing, especially to children, and I know there's adults watching this, but especially to children, is you say, loosen the ankle, and I was a super little kid, and it's like, well, how am I supposed, if I loosen my ankle, my legs are just gonna collapse right now, and the key is you loosen the ankle after you push off. Immediately after, they can't be loose here, they've gotta be supporting your weight. But the very second you push off, they can relax, and should relax. All right, so if you can get that ankle to be totally floppy after you push off, you have a very good chance of getting those sounds. So relax the ankle. And as I'm going through this, I'd probably do the relax the ankle before I would do all that weird toe work. Like only squish the toe, or don't squish the toe, or lift the toe up. I would relax the ankle first. I would do traveling is number one. Number two, I'd say let's do make sure your ankle is relaxing. And number three, then we can talk about height and toes. Both of those kind of roughly in the same order. So we want that, and now that we know to relax our ankles after we push off, we want kind of that whipping motion with our legs. There are a couple mental tricks to do that. One is to imagine, I call it kick the cookie. Imagine there's a cookie behind your foot and you want to just kick that cookie back. All right, hit that with your heel. There is another strategy. This one you have to be very careful with, because if people overdo this, they can hurt themselves. So you have to be really careful recommending this. But you can imagine a ball behind your knee. And my hesitation with saying this is, the idea is to hit the ball with the back of your knee, but you don't want to hyperextend the leg so hard that you're hurting your knee. That's not good. It's just to give you that idea of that whipping motion. All right, that kind of happens naturally. And for some people, having the image of a ball back there and that leg going back, it just makes things happen. Everyone has like a different click point, what mental image clicks with them and their body and how everything works. So but again, be careful with that. You don't want to hyperextend the knees to the point where you're hurting it. All right, so those are all your strategies. We're going to travel more. We're going to make sure the ankle's loose. We are going to Adjust height, not too low, not too high. We're gonna play with the toes, definitely making sure not to squeeze. Oh, also, don't point your feet. This goes with, if your ankles are relaxed, they can droop, but they're not gonna be like pointed hard. For students who take a lot of jazz and ballet and are so used to pointing their foot as they leave the floor, this can be a problem, because if you point as you do it, you're just gonna scrape, right? You're pushing through, you're just basically guaranteeing a scrape. So don't point your foot as you leave the floor. And then we have the mental tricks of kick the cookie and or hit the ball with the back of the knee. So those are some general strategies, a multitude of strategies that you can employ to get them. And I say, start with the first one and then work your way through. Ideally, you won't have to be you won't make it to the red ball, but whatever. We try many different things to see what works, but those are the ones I've probably had the most success with overall. Definitely the traveling is by far away the winner. I can probably get 85% of students who do pullbacks the first day with the traveling, boom, and they'll get it. And one of the things that I do when I'm first teaching it is I will do it and have them watch, and then they do it. And I will make them, if they're having trouble, I will make them watch and then do it, and then watch and then they do it. Because even if their brain isn't able to consciously calculate what's going on with my legs, especially with young children, that's just not going to happen usually. Well, there's some, but in general, just seeing it, there's a certain part of your brain, subconscious, that is processing what's happening. And we are, as human beings, we are made to mimic. Like we are designed to mimic. So if they see it, then they try it, then they see it, and they try it. But making them repeatedly see what is actually happening, some part of their brain filters that in, and I think that helps them get it as well. Versus just doing it once and explaining it, or just doing it several times and then having them do it across the floor, but not having them watch and do and watch and do and watch and do, so that they can their brain can compare what's happening with me versus what's happening with the teacher who's getting the sounds. All right, hopefully that is helpful. If you find that helpful, our lessons at unitedtaps.com, like we have a pullbacks lesson, I believe that's in our advanced beginner series. We have a full lesson series. We have from beginner up through intermediate advanced, we have a full lesson series, and it's not just like 1 or 2 lessons or 1 or 2 hours. They're like 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours. Our intermediate advanced is 28 hours, man. It's 18 lessons. Well, but part of the reason is when we talk about pullbacks, we'll talk about here's some strategies. Here, you're not getting it. Try this, try this, try this. Or your shuffles are still scrapey. Well, are you doing this, and are you doing this, and are you doing this? So in the lessons, whenever I teach a step, I'll go into detail and say, hey, here's some common problems, and here are ways to fix it. And then we'll actually practice those. And then we'll put those steps into combinations. So if you're a teacher, here's how the lessons are beneficial if you're a teacher. I teach the step, so you see how I teach it. I talk about the common problems and what to do about them, so you kind of learn that and those strategies as well. And then I put them in a combination, which is going to be useful for you. You can say, okay, so I got to do a combination with the class. We worked on pullbacks today. Now here's a combination that uses pullbacks. That's perfect. It all works together. So that's how it's beneficial as a teacher. If you are a student, the way it's beneficial is you're learning the step. I'm talking about the common problems and how to fix them. This can be really helpful, so that you're not saying, well, I can't do them, and then you just struggle endlessly and endlessly and endlessly. You have some specific strategies to employ. On top of that, if you don't get them, I've had customers email me and say, hey Rod, I can't get the pullbacks. I'm like, okay, great. Show me a video of what you're doing. And then they send me a video, and then I'm saying, well, it looks like you're doing X, Y, and Z. Why don't you try this, this, and this? And then they work on it, and then they send me a video back. We go back. I had one lady get pullbacks exactly this way. She was struggling. She sent me a video. I told her, hey, try this, this, and this. And then she tried those strategies. And it took her a while, but over time she got it. I was like, great, that's awesome. So if you're a student, it's awesome in that way. You get the breakdown and how to do it and the common problems, and we'll practice it. We'll do like 30 pullbacks. Be like, pull back! Again, here we go. Pull back! So you get to practice it, because it's not like you can see it and know how to do it in 3 seconds. That doesn't work. So we'll do it over and over and over. Then we use that in a combination, which is how you use it in the real life. So that's important. So that's what our lessons do. So they're very effective and very helpful. Also, we have our complete 315 tap dance dictionary and syllabus. These are video breakdowns of 315 tap steps from level 1 all the way up through level 7. Now, in these, one thing I don't do in these is I don't break down and say, hey, here's a common problem and how to fix it. It's just the idea for the dictionary was a quick get in there. What's a double maxi forward with a pull? boom, got it. Now I can move on and do whatever else I want to do. It's not to be like, here's how we teach this. That's what the lesson's for. The lessons will go in the detail. The dictionary is just a quick reference. I want to know how to do this step. I want to know how to count this step. Excellent. I want to know what order to teach them in. So with our complete 315 TAP dictionary and syllabus, you'll get 2 sets of notes. One set of notes has them in alphabetical order. Great. The other set is in syllabus order. So it's like, okay, level 1, here's the first thing I teach. Here's the second thing I teach. The third thing I teach, and so forth. Here's level 2, the first thing, second thing, and third thing. And it has them all in order. And what's cool is the order of the complete 315 TAP dictionary and syllabus matches the order in the lessons. So they go together perfectly. It's like, this is the first thing in the syllabus, this is the first thing we're going to learn in the lessons. And then they go together and go together and go together. So that's another thing that you may find helpful. And finally, I have something called the Practice 315. So I thought it would be great if we had a practice exercise combination for every step in the dictionary. So that's what I did. I created one. So like for a level 1 step like buffalo, we have a level 1 practice exercise combination. They're generally 32 counts. It's nothing fancy. It's just like, okay, it's great you can do a buffalo by itself, but guess what? That's not how we do them on stage. We do them mixed with other steps. So let's practice it mixed with other steps. And so I have these 315 combinations so we can practice each step at the appropriate level. We can do it in a combination, right? If I have a level 7 step, we're going to do a level 7 combination. So those go together really well. By the way, you can buy them as a package deal called the 315 deal. That's the complete 315 dictionary and syllabus, and then the practice 315. You can get those together. And the combinations that are in the practice 315 are different than the ones in the lessons. They're not the same. They're not overlapping. So you don't have to be like, well, am I going to just get the same thing? No, you're not. They're different. So those are some resources, whether you're a teacher or a student, that you may find really helpful. If there's any way I can help you, you feel free to email me. Even if you haven't bought anything, just be like, hey Rod, I watched your video and I still can't do the pullbacks. Email me, man, saying, okay, here's the video. Here's what I'm doing. I tried this, it's not working. What can I do? And I'll get back to you and I'll be like, okay, all right, I think try this, and we'll see how that goes. So even if you haven't bought anything, you can email me and I'll do my best to help you out. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I, of course, am Rod Howell from UnitedTaps.com, where we're teaching the world of tap dance.